Welcome to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, empowering the good. And we love having our good friend David Scully come on. He's the president of Duncan Williams Asset Management. David, how are you doing, buddy?
Doing great, Jeremy. Really appreciate you guys having me on today.
Well, you all do so much good in the community. You support so many different nonprofits and causes personally and professionally as an organization. So we'll talk all about the philanthropic endeavors, but let's start with a little background about Duncan Williams Asset Management. So give us a little bit of context for the company.
Yeah, happy to. And it's actually a nice intersection of what we do and our community involvement, because our mission statement at Duncan Williams Asset Management is to serve our clients, improve our community. It's short, it's simple, right? Just 6 words. The serve our clients piece isn't totally unique because we're in the service industry. We don't serve our clients, we're gonna have a big problem. But the improve our community piece is, right? It's something that we take very seriously, the way that we invest our community. And I know we'll get into it over the course of the next few minutes. But there's a lot of different manifestations of that. But at maybe even at a higher level, Duncan Williams Asset Management is an investment firm. We primarily serve the Mid-South community, although we have recently started to see our client base grow to more of a regional client base, which has been good growth for us and for everybody. As an investment firm, we work with really 3 types of clients. The individual, right, a person or a couple or a family that's saving money for something down the road. We work with companies on their retirement plans, whether it's a 401k or a 403b, SEP, simple. If a company offers a retirement plan to benefit their employees, we'll give advice on that. And then we work with nonprofit organizations, nearly 100 in the Memphis community. I advise them on a variety of things, including endowments, foundations, operating reserves, et cetera.
Talk about the structure, some of the things that make you unique when it comes to the business model.
For us, we are a registered investment advisor, an RIA. What that means is that we act as a fiduciary, as the highest standard in the industry. We're required to put our clients and investors' needs and desires above our own. The way that we make money here, the way that we charge fees is typically a percentage of assets. And so it's actually nice structurally, because in theory, if a client opens an account with some certain amount of money, we charge a percentage of that. If we wanted to make more money, the best way for that to happen is for the account to grow. And so if an account doubles in size, then our fee goes up. Actually, not quite double, right? Because we've got some different breakpoints and stuff. But it aligns us with our clients, right? The way for us to increase our revenue is for us to give quality advice that results in clients having more money in their accounts.
So it's a true partnership, and that makes it easy on that side.
That's right.
When you look at where the conversation starts, let's look at, especially for a family or for an organization, a company is a 401k. We ourselves, in full disclosure, my wife, our family, we're clients of yours, so I know this conversation well. But talk about the questions you like to ask, the conversations to get a pulse of the priorities, the important guideposts. So start out with where you like to start.
Sure, right. So Jeremy, as you know, we've got a 4-step process, and you're talking about step 1, which for us we call discovery. So the discovery process for us, right, before we give anybody any investment advice, whether it's an organization or an individual or family, first we want to know what we're talking about. And so during the discovery process, we're gathering information. We have questionnaires and different things you can do to log on and go through different stuff online. But usually we end up having a conversation, right? We sit across the table from the folks that are considering being clients of Duncan Williams Asset Management. And we want to know, what is the pool? What are the different pools of money that we're talking about? And for each pool, what's our time horizon? How do we feel about risk? What's our liquidity needs? Like how often and how much of the money are we going to have to take out? How do we feel about risk? What's our return objectives, right? And so and we drill down with each pool of money, each account. And in a perfect world, we set up an investment policy statement that helps us give good advice and defines the rules for everyone. But we gather all this information, right? And we can get pretty nuanced into exactly what we're trying to do. Different accounts have different tax considerations, for example. But once we get all of that information, right, this discovery process, we move to step 2, which for us is allocation, right? We've got a team of multiple CFA and CFP designation holders. We come in, we take all of that information, we look at existing statements, and then we determine how we might tweak them. And based on the conversation we've had and the information we've gathered, we try to build what we think is a perfect portfolio for this particular instance, right? Something custom built. And we don't always nail it, right? We try hard, and a lot of times we get really close, and sometimes we even do get it right on the first try. But once our team has finished, we have a second meeting. And at this point, we move to the third step, which is implementation. And so we present what we've come up with. And usually the prospective client will have some questions. If they don't, we'll just start asking questions, right? And we answer our own questions. We just try and get all the information out there. But as an example, they might say, look, I noticed that you guys included an international fund here. Does that fund have any exposure to emerging markets, right? I really would prefer not to have any Russia or China or Brazil or India in my portfolio. And we say, well, yeah, it does. It's, this fund's about 15%. Say, well, could we make a change? And we say, yes, of course, right? And so through the course of this conversation, there'll be some tweaks, and we'll adjust some things on the margin. But eventually, everybody sitting around the table agrees that we have a portfolio that reasonably would meet the needs and the objectives while taking on an amount of risk that everybody's comfortable with. And at that point, you hit the button to actually implement, right? That's implementation, our third step. And at that point, you become a Duncan Williams client. The account gets, fill out some paperwork, the account gets opened, it gets funded. We buy the things in the account that we agreed on, that everybody thought was appropriate. And from there, we move to our last step, which is monitoring or maintenance. During this, our default is to meet with our clients face to face every quarter. Some want to meet a little bit more often. Some want to meet not quite that frequently. But during those meetings, we talk about the market did this, your account did that. We think that something here is actionable. We need to make some changes, or we like to recommend some changes. It's a two-way street, though. We want to gather information, right? If something's changed on their end. Always use a positive example, right? You imagine you had a 529 plan, you've been saving for college for 15, 18 years. All of a sudden, you've got 60, 70, $100,000 saved up, and second semester senior year, surprise, full ride scholarship. Well, that's great, it's wonderful, but we have this pool of money where our objective, what are we doing with this pool of money now? And so then we would reallocate, have a new time horizon. Maybe there's a younger child. Maybe this is something that we need to do something totally different with now. And so that's the last step.
Talk about the mindset and consistency. I think, we've seen the volatility with the market, and I think understanding just how the market operates, and the market likes consistency, predictability. And so understanding that, but having a long-term perspective, having a consistent focus is a key. So talk about mindset, and, when you're talking with clients around, how to invest, the mindset and the key to consistency.
That's right. So in particularly in periods of higher volatility, certainly to the downside volatility, we field more inbound calls. We actually make more outbound calls to be proactive in our recommendations. But it's a time where people pay more attention to their accounts, and they get nervous, and they want to know, should they be making changes, right? This is my account didn't have as much money as it did last month or at the beginning of the year. Is it time to become more conservative and change something? And our answer to that's consistent, right? Like every time we're talking to, again, whether it's a family or a nonprofit organization, we say, we were very intentional on the front end, building a portfolio that was designed to meet your needs. That had a specific time horizon in mind, liquidity requirements. You had return objectives and risks that you were comfortable with. We actually talked about, if the market were to be down, some certain percentage, how much of that would you be comfortable capturing? And we just remind them, say, look, when we built this portfolio, these were the things that you said were important to you. And now we're going through something that's a little bit tougher. But before we make any changes, we want to know, has something changed about your goals and objectives, your time horizon? Those questions that we asked at the very beginning that were part of the discovery process, what's changed there? And sometimes things have changed, right? You say, well, I was planning to retire in 20 years, and And now I think it's going to be more like 8 years. So, okay, well, that's a big change in time horizon. Or people say, originally I was trying to get this return objective, but I've, something's happened and I've maybe inherited some money and I don't have to have as high of a return. And so I can dial down the risk, right? If you're having those types of changes, then yes, let's revisit the allocation and maybe adjust, would be more conservative or maybe even more aggressive. But if nothing has changed other than what you're seeing in the newspaper or on CNBC, then typically our advice is to stay the course, right? It's you've ridden a tough period, but you've invested this way for a reason. And over the long term, we expect that you still will be able to achieve your goals.
Yeah, and I think that mindset is really important, especially as you're riding, any sort of roller coaster up or down, just having the perspective. And like you said, understanding what the original goals were and staying true to that and being consistent with it. And I'm on my end, I love watches. And I also think back to mindset. There's an app that you can track, what the value of the watch is, and it fluctuates every day based on what it's trading for. But the reality is I still own the watch. It's just a matter of sometimes it might be a little bit up, sometimes it might be a little down. So I think, once again, perspective is key on just what the fluctuations mean, and ultimately, where is it in the big picture of getting you to your end goal. But obviously you as the professionals, that's what you're there for, is to guide us and get us across, the finish line in the right place. So it makes it very easy to have the experts as partners. Let's talk about community and partnership in the community and supporting nonprofits. Give us a little bit, you mentioned kind of on the mission statement side, but give us a little bit of just why that's so important for you and your team, not only financially, but physically, to be out serving in the community. You yourself serve on a number of nonprofit boards. So talk about why that's so important.
That's right. So, when we originally launched Duncan Williams Asset Management, actually, even before we officially launched Duncan Williams Asset Management, we were the private client group inside of Duncan Williams Inc. And this is about 10 years ago. And so when we were first getting this thing off the ground, Duncan and his team of senior leadership decided that the type of employees that they wanted to work in this group, they wanted them to be very community minded. And so they set an official and a requirement that to be offered employment here, you had to commit to being involved with 3 nonprofit organizations. And that didn't necessarily mean serve on the board, right? If you want to go out to youth villages and play kickball and tie-dye t-shirts, like that's great. Just be involved. And our concern when we first put that rule out there was like, oh, is this going to suppress or detract from the number or the quality of the candidates we might get? And we were delighted to find it was the opposite, that especially, for whatever reason, the generation that was sending in the most applications loved it. And so we had 500 applications for about 20 available positions, which was, and from folks all over the country. It was great. And so that's something that's part of our legacy, right? As we spun out 7 years ago, that's something that we have continued to make important to the people that work here. But in addition to that, we also have a service project every quarter. And we try to identify organizations that are doing good work in the community. And then we will schedule with them either an afternoon or a day of service during the work week. Most recently, we went to Oak Forest Elementary with junior achievement. I taught kindergarten for about 6 hours. And I don't know if I did any better than the average volunteer, but it was a full day for sure. I can tell you that. Other than that, we before like in the last couple quarters, we've repaired the limestone trail in the old growth forest at Overton Park. We've planted trees at Shelby Farms. We helped build the greenhouse and painted Christmas ornaments with the folks at Madonna Learning Center. We've cleaned the kitchens at Church Health Center. We went out to Ave Maria Home and played Jeopardy versus the seniors. We just barely came in second. I think they'd seen the cards before. But yeah, so like that's an important part too. But the reality is the most efficient way for us to improve our community is to find organizations that are doing great work and to support them so that they can achieve their mission either with greater efficiency themselves or at a greater scale. And so right now we're partnered with about between 85 and 90 Memphis-based nonprofit organizations. We support all of those organizations, sometimes financially, sometimes with man hours, sometimes with joint marketing and sometimes with networking, but usually a combination of these things. And so if we can make good introductions, or we can share a billboard with them, or if we can, write a check that helps them efficiently, or come out and repair the old growth forest trails, if that's something that can help them, then do the good work that they're doing in our community, it's a rising tide lifts all ships. And so it's something that comes from the very top. The Williams family, for multiple generations, has cared deeply about the Mid-South community. They've been committed to giving back. They support all types of different things. Some of them are really visible, like the Live at the Garden concert series, which is currently going on. The Germantown Performing Arts Center, the Indie Memphis Film Festival. Some of it's maybe not as visible, right? We have good relationships with Church Health and the Memphis Union Mission, and some of these other organizations that are maybe not as visible because it's not like an arts thing. It's more of a humanities, human services thing. But very important to the Williams family, and thus has permeated throughout our organization.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that has always been impressive, is the heart for giving back and supporting nonprofits and making a difference. And just like you're talking about, through service and dollars, and the creative side of using your marketing, your relationships, kind of leveraging all these different opportunities to lift our community. I absolutely love it and greatly appreciate it. Wrap up with contact information. Where can we go to carry this conversation forward?
We have a great, relatively still new website. It's dwassetmgmt.com. It's kind of short for Duncan Williams Asset Management, not that short for it, but dwassetmgmt.com. Phone number is 901-435-4175. And we are active on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Our handle is DWAM on all of those. You'll be able to find us pretty easily.
You make it easy. Well, David, thank you for all you and your amazing team do. Thank you for coming on the show.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Jeremy.